An 125-year-old trope seen frequently throughout the media, turning loving queer relationships from this to this. All of these tragic narratives that involve the murder or suffering of gay characters follow what is known as the bury your gays trope. Previously referred to as the dead lesbian syndrome, the trope is defined as the killing off of a gay character to prop up the story of a straight one. Narratively, a disproportionate number of gay characters are killed, typically after a declaration of love, an argument, or a nude sequence. This seemingly moral retribution pushes the ideology that LGBT plus people are unable to be happy, that gay stories are only used for dramatic effect or as a cheap excuse to feature lesbian sex. The issue has spawned articles, debates, panels, and fundraisers. TV Trope states, often gay characters just aren't allowed to be happy. At least one half of the couple must die at the end. During the Great Depression, films needed to be shocking to attract audiences enough to spend their money. Homosexual innuendos, as well as nudity and crude language, was used as a spectacle to attract audiences. This lack of morality in filmmaking gave way for the 1934 Hays Production Code.
The code sets up high standards of performance for motion picture producers.
This was an act of self-censorship, to appeal to the church and to set the ground rules for what would later be known as the bury your gays trope. Within the code, perverse storylines, i.e. homosexuality, could never be depicted, and that acts of immorality must be punished on screen. Called adaptational karma, this enforced that homosexuality was a crime that could not be permitted, and if it were indirectly, characters must be punished for their crimes. This is what we still see on screen today, even after the Hays Code era has ended. Gay characters who commit this indecency are punished, typically in the form of death, induced insanity, or rehabilitation. Misguided lesbians would fall into the arms of her Christian husband, or die after realising her sinful ways. Queer authors began to manipulate this trope. Mid-20th century lesbian pulp became a popular genre, with the inevitable punishment ending being disregarded by readers. Conforming to the trope allowed gay authors to write about gay characters without coming under fire for the endorsement of homosexuality. They could lie under the radar to tell stories which represented them without facing social backlash. So why is this trope still being used today? Hulin's article theorises that there are two main reasons why. Number one being catharsis, the notion that gay people suffer on screen as a reflection of how they suffer in real life. Films that tackle the AIDS epidemic, characters die from hate crime or highlight the high suicide rate within the gay community. They are telling a story of grief and deep love through a queer lens. That being gay in itself can bring with it a high mortality rate. Or they are telling gay stories for exploitation. Similar to that of the 1930s cinema, these narratives are being used as a spectacle, to shock audiences or to make them feel they are watching something scandalous. Lesbian kisses during Sweeps Week, when American TV is monitored for its viewership figure, is a common trope. Afterwards, these characters either return to being straight or leave without mention. Writers use them for diversity points, or struggle to continue a storyline after their coming out arc has been completed. Or maybe gay characters die because that's what characters do. In a time where the anyone can die narrative is increasingly popular, maybe characters' sexuality isn't taken into consideration. In conclusion, there is evidence that gay characters are still being treated as more expendable than their heteronormative counterparts. It's apparent that for some writers, they're more interested in writing a gay character than writing a character who happens to be gay. It's an issue about equitable representation. It's not that gay characters shouldn't die on screen, but that currently our tragic endings are shown at an inordinately higher rate than our happy ones. Maybe writers will need to take more consideration next time a stray bullet hits their token lesbian, because as it's been seen, people are beginning to notice.